I recently reviewed the 2025 Razer Blade 16, and it is a pretty good laptop. They made it a lot thinner and prettier, but it was a bit inconsistent across the board. Well, today I'll be reviewing its little brother, the 2025 Razer Blade 14. So will it suffer from the same issues, or will this little guy impress us all? Well, let's find out. And please like and subscribe if you like these type of videos. One thing's for sure, the 2025 Blade 14 is a gorgeous little machine. Razer knows their stuff when it comes to making laptops, and this fully black body with the Razer logo and a lot of RGB just looks awesome. Some people think it looks a bit too gamery, but I think it looks very sleek. This black color is a massive fingerprint magnet though, and it's pretty hard to keep this thing looking like new. It's got a thick layer of aluminum, so it's probably the sturdiest laptop that money can buy. You won't find deck flex or any kind of bending here. But despite that full metal body, it's incredibly lightweight, especially for a gaming laptop. And Razer has also made it a lot thinner than last year's models, which were a bit on the thick side. But less thickness also means less cooling and less upgradeability, which we will see later on in the video. What I have is the top spec this year. And while these are good specifications, it only goes up to an RTX 5070 and a Ryzen 9 365, which is quite a bit lower than other 14-inch gaming laptops this year. It does have a pretty high power limit, but the RTX 5070 only has 8GB of VRAM, so it's odd that they didn't give it a higher spec option. And the Ryzen 9 365 is a bit slower than the HX 370, so I don't know why they're limiting it like this. The Blade 14 does have an excellent port selection, basically offering every single port you can imagine except for an Ethernet port. And its charging brick is also relatively small and very lightweight, which they did improve from last year. This proprietary Razer connector fits very tightly, which might be a good or bad thing depending on who you ask. But it can also be charged through USB-C, so other smaller chargers will work as well. Just keep in mind that this will not give you full performance on this laptop. It'll still perform like it's on battery. As for its keyboard, well, first impressions are everything, right? And the full per key RGB backlight on here is awesome. You can individually control each key backlight separately, which allows for some very pretty light shows. This isn't for everyone, and you could of course just turn it off or keep it on a boring white color, but Razer has the best and brightest RGB options, and it really does show. As for the keys themselves, they're quite nice. The key travel is a bit short in my opinion, but it's perfectly fine for like 99% of people, and it has a very satisfying click to it. Oh, and when you hold the function key, it only lights up the FN combinations, which is pretty cool. It also has a top-notch touchpad. This thing is big and made of glass, so it feels premium and is very nice to use. It does require a bit more force to press down than the average touchpad, but this is not a problem for me. And it also has quite good palm rejection, so you won't accidentally keep moving the cursor if you rest your palm on it. The Blade 14 also has a gorgeous display. At 3K 120Hz with an OLED panel, this is basically the best of the best at this size. But it has one major issue, its reflectiveness. Unless you're really into makeup, this is very distracting and makes using it pretty annoying if you're anywhere near a light source. Now apart from that, this panel looks great. The OLED gives it amazing colors, high contrast and perfect looking blacks. But again, you will see reflections in those blacks. It feels great for gaming though, as 120Hz is definitely enough for faster paced games. And it also gets nice and bright at a maximum of 500 nits. Its display hinge doesn't go back very far, but it is very sturdy and feels like it'll last a long time. But it stays perfectly stable when you're typing on it or just using it normally. Now for my favorite part, its speakers. The Blade 14 has pretty good speakers. They're definitely a lot better than last year. The Blade 14s from previous years had god-awful speakers, so it's nice to know that Razer did something about them. They're still not perfect, and they could definitely use a little more bass, but for 99% of people, these sound great. Blade 14 has, just like the Blade 16, a very high quality camera for some reason. So it should be great if you earn money in less Christian ways. The microphone is also pretty decent. Now my biggest gripe with the Razer Blade laptops is Razer Synapse. This is Razer's pre-installed software where you can control all the performance and lighting stuff of the laptop. And while it does have quite a bit of customizability, it is still very buggy. The main issue is that at times it is very slow. For example, if you want to change some settings while gaming, I guess you gotta wait. This was an issue with the Blade 16 as well, where sometimes you just couldn't do anything with your laptop. And all of that customizability that I talked about is just not available if you unplug the charger. All of this really takes away from that premium laptop experience. But as long as it performs well, all of that doesn't matter, right? So how does it perform in some actual benchmarks? Well, in Cinebench R23, it performs pretty well if it's plugged in. It's not the best laptop shipped this year, so it will lag behind its competition, but what is a bit of an issue is its performance on battery. It loses almost half of its single core performance, which will be an issue later on in the video. In 3D Mark TimeSpy, it performs about on par with a last-gen RTX 4070, which is a bit disappointing in my opinion. But those are all synthetic benchmarks. This is a gaming laptop. So how does it perform in games?
Huh? Okay. I love you, man. Huh? Okay.
Kinda game.
You motherfucker, man. You motherfucker, man.
I'll hack you to pieces. Ha! You'll never take me down.
Uh-oh.
The Blade 14 does run every game pretty well. I did have to turn down the resolution to 1200p to get smooth frame rates in some games, but overall it did very well. But I expected a lot more out of this RTX 5070. It's not that much faster than a 4070, and a lot slower than the 5070 Ti. But a bigger issue is its performance while not plugged in. It's normal for a lot of gaming laptops to limit performance on battery, but the Blade 14 does this by a lot. And this can be noticeable in normal use. Sometimes Windows just becomes sluggish to use, which is unacceptable. Now you might think, why not just change some performance settings in Razer Synapse? Well, like I said, Razer blocks all performance settings while you're on battery, so you literally just can't do anything. For such an expensive laptop, that's a pretty big issue. Now on the bright side, it has some pretty good battery life. I tested it in two scenarios, under light use and during gaming. In the light use scenario, I played a YouTube video at full brightness, at 60 Hz, and with the dedicated GPU turned off. And in this light case, it lasted almost 9 hours, which is pretty good for a gaming laptop. Keep in mind that in a realistic use case, that'll be more like 6 hours, but that's still very good, and definitely a lot better than last year. Now in the gaming test, I played Battlefield 1 until its battery died, with the same settings as before. And like always, it lasted about an hour. Don't buy a gaming laptop expecting an on-the-go gaming experience. Now another big win for the Blade 14 are its thermals and its fan noise. It's got a huge vapor chamber, so this tiny body can handle quite a bit of power. While playing Cyberpunk 2077, it stayed very cool for a gaming laptop. Its CPU reached a maximum of 83 degrees Celsius, and the GPU a maximum of 73, which is downright impressive. The palm rest did get a little warm, but not by a whole lot. The keyboard stayed very cool, except for the middle, but the top of the laptop got boiling hot, so just don't touch that. As for the fan noise, it actually stayed impressively quiet compared to other gaming laptops. I think Razer might actually be limiting the components in this laptop, because running this quiet and this cool in such a thin body is downright impressive. Now what's less impressive is its upgradeability. The 2023 and 2024 Blade 14s added back upgradable RAM, which made it the only 14-inch gaming laptop in 2024 with that option. Well, I guess they got tired of that and wanted to make it thinner, so they got rid of it. Only soldered RAM for this one, folks. It still does have an upgradable Wi-Fi card and a single M.2 SSD slot, but looking at this motherboard, it's pretty obvious that there's just not a whole lot of space left. Now you can spec it with up to 64 GB of RAM out of the box, so I guess this isn't a huge issue, but that's not an option in every country, which kind of sucks. What also kind of sucks is its pricing. In most of the world, the Blade 14 with an RTX 5070 costs around $2,500 to $2,700, which is a lot of money. The RTX 5060 model is considerably cheaper, but that's still a lot of money for a 5060 laptop. And compared to the competition, that might be an issue. More on that later. So, conclusion time. Is the 2025 Razer Blade 14 worth it? Well, in my opinion, not really. It is a very pretty laptop. It looks sleek, has the best of the best RGB, and that new thin body feels very good in the hands. But like with the Blade 16, it suffers from very inconsistent performance, especially on battery. If Razer would just unlock those performance settings on battery, we might not have had this issue. I might be wrong though, and the cause of this inconsistency could be something completely different. But on such an expensive device, it is downright unacceptable. But hey, you know what is almost exactly the same price as this laptop? The 2025 Zephyrus G14. But it comes with an RTX 5070 Ti. So how do these two compare? Is the Zephyrus just objectively a better deal? Well, let's find out in the next video. Well, I'll be comparing the two in full detail. Now let me give a huge shout out to my YouTube members. Soundwife, Thomas, Inky, Mr. Frosty Dude, Tropzone1, Martijn Snijkers, Flimsy, Aki, Disco Volante, Daniel, Mr. Nuke, Sebastian, Christian Sands, Real Elf, Suryansh, Alan, Toasted, QME, Eric the Rad, Wesley Rhodes, Michael, and Ghost Data. If you become a YouTube member, you get early access to content of mine, a shout out at the end of every video, and you'll also be supporting me as a creator to make these videos. And of course, you'll also be part of the Cool Guys Club, so you can use cool emojis like these in the comment section. So join the club if you're interested, and I will see you all in the next video. Bye bye.